Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Handmade by Ying with Donna. Today is Tuesday, September the 27th, and I'm going to roll back just a little bit because I neglected to do one of my projects, and I want to hit on it just a little bit because I owe Monique over at Open Gates an apology. I love her boxes, and I've been traveling just a bit and getting reacclimated here at home, and I neglected to finish my box. All I did was the opening. So, Monique, this one's for you, kid. And I'm sorry. I love your boxes, but I wanted to hit on it just one more time before I do my project. This is the Open Gate box. And if you haven't got one, she has so much goodness all wrapped up in one. So this is the September 2022 box, and it's filled with all kinds of goodness. Today I'm going to be working on project number 2, the Acorn Trivet, and then you'll see another video coming out sometime this week of the Fall Lane project. I've already got my fabrics cut, so I'm not going to be able to show you the trivet until the end, and I'll hold it up and show it. But for right now, I can show you the Fall Lane because it's just darling. This is project number 1, and it's going to measure 30 by 30 when it's complete. But is that not darling? It's just going to look so, so pretty. So in the box, you get many things, all kinds of goodness. So the fabric at the top, it's the Harvest Farm Painted Sky Studio. It's full color pattern and picture, and I've showed you that. The Acorn, you're going to watch me make that one, so I'm going to skip over that. The notion of the month this time is the magic pins. And I'm telling you what, if you haven't tried them, you're totally, totally missing out. These little boogers are just dynamite. They are so thin and so sharp. So you got to be really careful with them because they do bend a little easy. But I'm telling you what, they slide like magic into your projects and everything stays nice and tight. The next thing you get is a 30 weight cream Orifil. I love Orifil. That's my go-to. And you get a bonus fat quarter panel and one panel of Fall Barn quilted by Riley Blake. Now this is the little panel, and I'm definitely going to be doing a project with this one. But this, I should have pressed off so you could get the full effect. But is that not darling? And while I was away in PA, a lot of the barns, believe it or not, if you go back to my video of my travels, you're going to see a lot of the barns had all kinds of different paintings on them. And every one of them meant something different within that community. So you'll have to skip back to my retreat video for that. You also get an extra bonus of a fat quarter, and she handpicks each and every one for us. Now, you can't get any better than this. It's just a box of goodness. And I've never been disappointed yet with one of her boxes. So let me see what else she says in here. There was a Zoom class and I missed it, but I am going to circle back and watch that video because I want to give this Fall Lane all the goodness, and it's got a lot of corners in it. So I'll watch that before I do this video. She also puts a little note in here for everybody that orders from her. And they make every effort to make sure everything is included in your subscription box. And if ever you're missing anything, and I've never, since I've been with them, missing anything at all. So all you have to do is reach out and they make it right. If you haven't subscribed to one of her boxes, it's $50 for me. And I've never been disappointed. And it comes all wrapped up in this nice, tidy package. And it's just gorgeous. I love her packaging and everything about this project box. So with that being said, I can skip in here to today's project. I went ahead and pre-cut all my parts. That way I can streamline our video. But I did fussy cut on this one because I want my Acorn to have the Harvest Gold. The back of it is going to have the matching fabric. And I'm not going to give you her measurements. That wouldn't be right, you know. It comes with the Insel Bright. You have everything you need to make the project. So it has the Insel Bright, and it's also got the batting for some quilting. However, I choose to do that whenever we get to that segment. There's a couple things that you're definitely going to need when you do this project. However you choose to mark things. I use a pencil. I used to use all the fancy gadgets and everything. I've learned I can mark things with a pencil and get a better precision. I also choose to use the OmniGrid. And as you can see, let me hold it up this way. See if you can see. When you're doing your HSTs or you need to just do that straight line marking, this gives me the perfect alignment every time. It's got the pieces here where you can just mark. Everything's perfect when you're using this. So I really am hooked on that. Definitely using her pins that she gave us. And I've starched my fabric. I went ahead and pre-cut to save time. So with that being said, let's get this sewing party started. So the first thing I'm going to do is, it says the piecing. On the backs of my squares of my orange, I was to draw a line. So on that, I've already went ahead and used my OmniGrid, and I've made my line diagonally straight across. And you'll be able to see it better on the darker fabric, how it comes through really nice. So I've got all of them marked exactly as she has told us to do. And now I'm going to start laying this out. One of the segments, it says, I have on the backs of my 2-inch, I have that here. I'm going to lay this flat, and I'm going to lay these upside down, and I'm going to go diagonally across. And these are going to get tacked in with my pins just so that there's no shifting. And I'm going to go this way. And it's going to come out with that peak at the top. And like I said, her projects come out ever so nice. So draw a line on each corner to corner. Watch the direction of the sewing line. So on the line, I'm going to do a little scant over because I just want to make sure that it's exactly the way I want it. I'm going to get my iron plugged in because there's a bit of ironing here. So I want to make sure that that is set up and ready to go for when we get to that section. So I'm going to just go ahead. You can use your enders and leaders. For this one, I'm not. And I'm just going to get it started. And like I said, I'm just going to vary like one little thread over because when this folds up, I want it to fold up really nicely. Got my snips. Snip here and do the same thing on the next. And take your time. This is a fun project. You don't want to rush through it. So before I ever do anything else, I'm going to finger press it up to make sure that it's in alignment, just the way I'd like it, and it is. Both sides. So now I'm going to press because I want to make sure that's in where I want it to be. Now I'm going to lay it there for just a second. Now I'm going to come over and I'm going to cut. I'm going to take those little snippets of the corner on each one off. I'm just going to fold it back, pick up my handy dandy ruler of choice, and I've got all mine stacked down here. And you're going to want to do the 1/4 inch when you're trimming it off. This is my creative grids, but use whatever ruler you would choose. And I'm going to slide around over here and do the same thing. If I'm cutting a lot of fabric, I use my martelli, but just for here at the sewing machine, I use this one, it just makes it easy. So now I'm going to press it down just that one final time and let it sit. That's one section done. So now I'm going to move to the next step, following the same procedure as step 1. Place, sew, and press the remaining 2 drawn line squares on the bottom of where we fussy cut it. So I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to do the same thing, but it's going to go in the bottom corners. You need to pay close attention to the way that you're doing the layout, because this is the base of your acorn. So just lay it in, use your nails or your fingertips, and just give it a little wiggle down in. Go ahead and pin, because as we're maneuvering our fabric, sometimes it slips a little bit. You don't want that on this. So I'm just going to give it a little nudge in there. And I'm also going to do the same thing, just a little tiny bit. I'm going to sew on that line, just so it slides in really easy and nicely. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Pin's too close. So I'll wiggle that in and hold it with my finger. Wiggle it in. Like I said, it's a very, very scant. Pull the other pin and finger press it. Finger press it up to make sure that you don't want to be doing seam ripping or regrets. That's the worst. If you didn't check it and you cut it and it's like, oh no, I did this wrong. So just give it a check. That way when you make that final cut, it's going to come in really pretty for you. Before I cut, that's the bottom of my acorn. Now, does that not come in really pretty? Right there. So I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the corners. Cut this side. Give it a good press down in. And always remember, when you're laying your rotary blade down, you want to make sure you're closing it. Safety first, you know. Got a couple little strings here, and I like to keep my strings cut off, but it's up to you. This piece is finished, so I can take my little marker off. So I'm going to lay that aside, and I'm going to go to the next step. So we've got the bottom made. Now it says, sew the rectangle, the orange, up both sides. So I need to find that measurement, because I'm not going to give you the measurements. But this is the one I need. So I'm going to take these, lay this aside, and this is going to fit perfect right here on this side. So I'm just going to snug it in. And you can pin, or you can opt not to. I'm a pinner because this is a project. Anytime I'm doing something, I like to make sure it's in. So I'm going to get this one lined up, bring it over to the edge, and pin. I'm learning to get away from the corners because I don't want to have to be pulling pins when I'm sewing, but I still do it sometimes. So this, I'm sewing in at 1/4 of an inch. And going really slow to make sure that it's not shifting. And just sew straight off the end. Flip it around, pull your pin, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Make sure you're lined up. It's just that extra eye on it. And you're 1/4 of an inch. I'm pulling my pin and lining my corner here, even though it was pinned. Snip those little strings. Give it a finger press this way. And then let me see what her directions are here for how she wants you to press. He does not say, so I'm going to press out. This acorn is coming together really quick. So far we've got part of the acorn finished. So I'm going to move to the next step. We've got the top of the acorn that's going in. So you just watch the way you're laying it, and you flip it down, and you're going to line your corners. Got a string there, and I'm going to pin this one in. Then we're going to do the same thing on this side, and I'm just going to hold it there. And I'm going to come down. This, once again, you're going to stay with your 1/4 of an inch. Stay true to that on everything you're doing. And your projects are going to come together really, really nice. I've got Orifil thread in my sewing machine, and it's the cream. That's what our project called for, and I already had it loaded, so I wasn't going to change. And we're going to give this a little bit of heat love. Move my iron. This one here, she wants the seam pressed down. So I'm finger pressing it, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of heat. And so far, we've got the acorn. So I'm going to set this aside for just a second. Looks like the acorn's missing just a little tidbit. So the next thing I'm going to do is move to my next size, and I'm going to build out yet again. So I'm going to put my little tabs down, grab my acorn back from over there, and I'm going to bring this in. And what we're doing is building out our acorn. So you're going to pin again. Make sure that you're lined up. I'm going to do the same on the top and the bottom because I do not want it to shift. Flip it around and do the same. Make sure you're starting at a true corner, and if your measurements are right, your cutting is right, you won't have any problems. And as my husband tells me, measure twice and cut once, and you won't have any issues. So I'm going to line it up. Give it a little wiggle here. I can see that I'm not lined up right. There you go. And I'm not one to sew over pins. I'm just scared to death. I see a lot of people do. I just choose not to. Pull the pin and snip it, and then flip it and go up the other side. Now this one here, she wants pressed out this way. So I'm going to finger press it, flip it over, and finger press it again. Give it a little bit of heat. Flip it and do the same thing. So now we're going to build the next section. On both ends, I'm going to move this out of the way. Safety first, you know. I'm going to use, I want to make sure I'm getting the right pieces. Okay, let me look here. 1/4 on both ends. Okay. So I'm going to take these and lay that down. And you got some maneuvering here to do, but in a good way. So you've got this wee little tiny piece. That's going to be the top of your acorn. Is that not cute? So let me get that wiggled in here. And of course, you can pin or choose not to pin. This one's such a little piece. My fingers are going to just stick right there with it. Snip your thread, open it up, press it down, and then add your next section. Lay it down. Make sure it's lined up because you don't want to lose any of that acorn top. And make sure you snip your threads. That way they're not going to become bothersome in your project. Now these I'm going to look and see, press in one direction. So either way you press, I'm going to press them this way. So let me finger do this, and then I'm going to snip this little threads, my starter threads on this, and give it a little dab of heat. Definitely want that flat as can be. So that's the top of your acorn. So now I'm going to flip it over here, lay it down. Okay, so on the top, want to make sure I'm not missing something. Press in one direction. Did that. So that piece from step 5 on top. So that's where we're going there. And let me line this up and pin again. I've got it centered because you want your acorn top to be centered. And you're going to have a little tidbit on the ends here, and that can be just trimmed off. I'm lining up, and off we go again. Pull this out. These patterns she does is amazing. I've never done an acorn, so this is new. I love doing trivet. Just gonna trim that little tab there. And I'm gonna do the same over here. From where I added that little centerpiece in, I had a little overage. So now let me see how she wants you to press. Press in one direction, then this one we're going to press up. So I'm finger pressing that one in. I'm trying to look. It wants to go down. See which way. For directions is calling for up. Force it to go up. Never go against the pattern writer on this. And it's been manipulated to go in the up. Okay, the next rectangle on the top and the bottom. So we've got 2 more little pieces to add. So we're going to lay this here. And we are in. I want to line it up. And we're going to pull some pins. Get it lined up right there. And we're going to do the center. Like I said, just because I pin. And then I'm going to pull this straight to the edge. Because I don't want it to be askew. And then we're going to do the same on the bottom. And you're going to pin. And it comes together really easy if you listen to her directions. If ever you're working one of her projects and you're just not sure, I can assure you she's only a message away or a phone call away. Make sure my corners are lined up. And then we're going to sew this baby in. In the comments below this video, let me know how many of you are doing this project. I really enjoy them, and I think you will too. If you haven't subscribed to one of Monique's boxes, you're definitely missing out. Like I said, you get the bang for your buck. And like many of us, were not disappointed. You can always use her patterns, add your own fabric, and make multiples. So that's one more thing. It's just like any, you just have fun doing them. Pull the pins. And let me see how she wants this. And I'm going to snip my threads. Got a thread over here. There we go. So on this block, press in the direction of the arrows. The arrows are telling me up we go. Finger press this up. And then we're going to square this block. It should measure 8.5 square. See what we measure here. Eight and a half. I need to trim just this little scant bit off the end here. That way it's totally square. You line your ruler up at the top. And down here at the bottom. And I'm just going to line it up. I'm just taking that little sliver off. And I'm going to opt to do it on this side as well. Which I probably don't need to do, but I'm just doing it. Because when we trim it in a little bit, but it is your 8.5 now by 8.5. Let's see, which way is it going to work? Right here. Now, is that not cute? And it came together in no time at all. So let me move my rulers, and we're going to see what the next step of goodness is. So we've got this made. Layer the backing with the right side down in So Bright batting an acorn block and quilt as desired. So let's see how we're going to do this. It says the Insel Bright, the batting, the top. Let's get this. We're going to make a sandwich and quilt it however we would like. So Insel Bright, the batting and the acorn block and quilt as desired. Cut the paper. I'm just looking here because I want to make sure I've got this lined up. I think she said the backing, layer the backing with right side down, Insel Bright batting, acorn block. Okay, now's the time to use the backing. And I made sure the sunflower word was dead center. So I want to do the same when I'm doing my backing. I want to kind of get it centered. Move this down just a smidge. sure got my quilt sandwich just the way I want it. And then now all I have to do is figure out how I want to quilt it. So I'm going to pin in a few spots just because I don't want it to shift as I'm working this one out. So I'm not going to do anything really fancy because I'm just going to do it here on my domestic. I could load it on the long arm and whip it out real quick, but I think this will work just fine. I'm going to pin in the center because I don't want it to shift, but I'm going to start in the center and come down. And I think the center of my acorn would be my starting point. Let me move these little tidbits out of the way, move my Omni grid and clean up my area as I go. And I'm going to put my little guide on my machine. And then I'm going to figure how wide I want my segments to go. Am I going to just quilt in here, or am I going to quilt all the way around? I'm just going to go ahead and come down dead center, I believe. And I'm going to start there, and then we'll go from that part. So, and just take your time. That is dead center. And I want to keep it that way, so I've got my eyes on right here. And just let the fabric slide as it's doing it. You don't want to end up with a lot of puckers in it. And it's shifting just a tad bit, but that's okay. Even with pinning, things are going to shift. So I'm going to use this as my focal line and lift up and see where I want to go. Let me see here. I want to make sure that I've got lined up how far I want it. And my seam, my line is going to match right here. So I've got it lined up just about, I want to say 2 inches. So I'm going to come down this way, and then I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to go up. That way I'm not, the goal is not to get a lot of puckers. Now this time I'm coming this way. I'm just going to move my guide on the other side. Go ahead and start pulling your pins. And if you're holding some pressure on it, that's going to help it from shifting as well. I like how puffy it is. I think that's cute. I'm going to flip and do this side, lining up exactly where I want it to start. We're going to give it a go. Just sew straight off. I'm going to pull this pin. I'm going to line up one more time. I really like the way this is coming together. I could take and go across this way a couple times. So I think I'll try that. I just, like I said, I don't want to have a ton of puckers in it. Now, if you put pressure on it as you're coming across, this here, I'm going to use my seam tape to give me that line. And lined up pretty good. And sometimes it's just really, really relaxing to just do a little bit of mindless quilting. So we're going to just keep going. And I'm going to watch this line over here because I don't want it to get askew. Just keep doing the same thing until you build your way out. And I'm going to do it on this side as well. Liking the quilting on this. It's kind of cute. Up and down and then sideways. Do one more on this side. Like I said, keep your fingers here and you shouldn't have any puckers. I'm doing it right at the intersections. That's why my fingers are pushing down in. And so far, so good. I don't have puckers. I think that's any quilter's worst part of it, is when it gathers in the center. And then I'm just going to switch it again and make the decision. Am I going to go one more go? And absolutely. So I'm lining it up here and trying to decide where I want it. The easiest way you can make sure your guide is right is come dead center and then set it back in on the next side. So now I know I'm lined up. So I'm getting the same measurements all the way across because I went and just lined it up. Popped it. I want to make sure it's in right. So that one is right because I've moved my seam guide and I definitely don't want that mess. So, got it lined up. Let me see. Do I want another one? I'm going to do one more. Let's see how it looks with one more. Really liking that. I am going to go ahead one more time. And I think, let me move my guide one more little bit over because I don't want it to go off the end. And the idea of it is to keep the line straight. Let's do the same over here. Slide it under and just line up. This is the quilting on it so far. We made ourselves a darling little trivet. Now all we have to do is add the finishing touches. I always like to check the back for any strings. Lay it out. So let's see what the directions say now. So we've got it quilted, and I'm quite pleased with that. Let me see. Cut the paper circle out on the line. So she's got a line here. I'm going to fold it. right where she's got a little dot in the center to show us where we need to be folding it. I pressed it out because when it came, it was a little bit, per se, folded incorrectly, but it was the way that they had to do it to get it into the packaging. So just fold on that, make sure that dot is center. And I'm right on the dot. And then I'm going to fold it again and line these two lines up. And I'm back on the dot here and press. I want to make sure that I'm giving that a little bit of heat because I want it to come in just right. Let my paper cool down. And I'm going to just, to make my circle, I don't have to go all the way around. Now it's folded in half. And this makes your circles or anything come out really nice. I'm laying this here. Now let's open it up and see if we have a circle. Absolute. And now give it a little bit of heat, love, one more time. Who doesn't love to iron paper, right? But if you want to do it, you want to do it right. So now it says, put that dead center. And fold the acorn block. Fold the quilted acorn block in quarters. Find the center. Mark the center with pins. And then cut around to make sure that you're dead center. So we're going to fold it in half. I'm going to find the center. I want to make sure that I've got it centered, so I'm going to give it a little bit of heat right here. And that's going to show me my true center. So right here on the H is my center. Match the center, pin the circle, the acorn, and cut around the acorn block. So now here on the H is my center. So the easiest way that I know to do it is on this paper, I'm going to find the center of my block is where she's got it marked. I'm going to take this to the center of my H and I'm going to stick it straight down in. That is the center of my block. So I'm just jabbing that in for right now so it doesn't shift. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of pin in a couple places so as I'm trimming it in, it's not going to shift. You don't want to put the work in and then have it moving on you. Then lay it down and just pin again. Do it one more time. Like I said, these pins will bend if you're not careful with them. So I'm going in dead center and folding and slipping it right in. So now I've got it dead center and it's centered to where I wanted to make sure that I kept the sunflower as well. So I'm really quite pleased with that. Now I'm just going to take my scissors. You can use your rotary cutter if you'd like. I want to get the accuracy. So I'm just going to take my time and cut around. And I really like her projects. Like I said, you can keep the template, keep it all, and you can make these trivets with any holiday. And they come together quite nice. If you've heard me say that once, you've heard me say it a dozen times. But I really enjoy Monique's projects. Let me get this out of the way. Pop the pins. We'll see what we've got to work with. So, ta-da. Is that not cute? But we're not done yet. So now we're going to bind. Who doesn't like binding? So all my little papers that I had things marked up and numbered, I know this is going to be a project that I want to do again. So I'm going to pop these right here and stick them all together because I'm a labeler. And the little bag that everything came in with her directions, I'm going to keep everything together. Makes it easier when you're doing it again. So now now we're going to do the binding, and you're going to do it just like any other project. You're going to fold it in half, and you're doing your 2.5 inch. So just press it. And she asked that you make the 30-inch binding, and on this project, because you're doing it a circle, you needed to make sure that you're cutting on the bias. That's going to give you the stretch that you need for this project. And you need it to be able to stretch and maneuver easily. So finger press this in. Slide it down. And one more time. Make sure that you're pressing that in. If it's straight going on, it's going to be perfect. So I've seen these go in a couple different ways. You can do it from the front or you can do it from the back. This is my first time doing one that is all one big circle, so we're going to see how good I can do. Got my handy dandy clips. I'm pulling my marker off and dropping it in my bin, and we're going to give it a go. Do I want it to be tacked on the front? Yeah. So remember, you're going to leave a little bit of lag there so that when you're joining it together, it's going to come around and you're going to have room to join that in. It's got the stretch that we need. And you're just going to come all the way around and just keep turning with it. And continue. One more time. Of like 20 more times. Just keep clipping. Clips are your best friend on this one. Pull this out because I don't want the puckers. And people use multiple ways of joining the binding. So I'm going to give this a look-see and see which way I want to do the binding as far as joining it. I know I have the 2.5 inch. So am I going to just tuck it in, or how am I going to do this? Because it's on the circle. Let me see. This one here, I'm going to pop this side out. And you just got to see what works for your brain. I think I'm just going to tuck this one in. Make it work here. When I say tuck it in, I'm going to show you what I mean. We're going to bring this around. And you're going to open this up here. And you're just going to fold this one in. Normally I would have married them there. But I think this is going to work easier to get it in right. I'm going to pin, and then I'm going to come over here to where I'm stuffing it in. I want to make sure it lays flat. If not, I'm not going to do it this way. It's trial and error when you're doing something new. And yes, it goes in because of the bias. There you go. And I know I have over clipped. You can see I'm a clipper. So I'm going to start right here where I was working, and I'm going to come around. And now it's in snug, and you're going to do the 1/4 of an inch. And just keep letting it spin around. As you come to your pin, your clips, just pull them. Longer to pin it than it does to do it. Just sew it in. So we've got that far. I'm going to move these because, yep, I'm going to need them again. So now you're to this stage. You're going to want to just fold it. And then what I do, you don't have to do it the way that I do, but I'm just going to finger press it out because I want it to go in nice. And I want to make sure that I've caught everything before I get my hands in here and start actually working it. So now I'm going to flip it over and just start turning it. And take the iron down in here, and I'm going to press it just to make sure I've got all those corners in good. Now I'm going to pull this over and just tuck it in real snug right there. And I'm going to clip. But I'm not going to clip as many times going around because it's going to go in really nice because I've pressed it. And we've cut on the bias, and there's a good bit of stretch there. You just want to lay it there, and wherever your seam line was is what I'm using from the inside. So right here's where I'm going to start working, so I'm not going to pin right there. I will move these out the way, and I'm going to line it up. And right where I joined it, it seems to be where I'm choosing. Now, the end side of your foot is what I'm laying my line on. That's going to give me the consistency going around when I'm sewing it in. And I always choose to use my fingernail to help hold things down. And just like that, we have a trivet. I think it's one that you'll be proud of, and you'll probably be making a lot more of them. There you go. Now, is that not darling? So, Monique, you knocked another one off my checklist, and you knocked this one out of the park, I'd say. Joe and I are quite pleased, and we'd like to thank you for another great project. We'll be back again sometime in the next day or two to do project number 1, but this is a kickstart into sliding in before my next box comes. You guys have a fabulous day. Thank you for joining me. And once again, Monique, sorry I'm delayed, but I got it in there for you. So, bye-bye, guys. Take care. God bless, and we'll see you back in the next video. Bye.